let's talk a little bit about the first ever amateur MMA event that the CSC held. That was last Saturday at the Toronto Super Show. Give us a little bit of your feedback. What did you like about the event? Maybe some things that you guys are already working on to improve on.
Right. I was actually excited the whole weekend. I mean, I hardly slept leading up to that weekend because it was like our first event after spending, almost a year and a half developing our amateur MMA program. What in the end was exciting for me was, there's two sides to it. So if I wear my organizational hat, the excitement was over the fact that no one got hurt, no one died. Any of our injuries were extremely minor. And probably the most important thing, I think, for us as an organization was the mainstream media was very positive. Most people remember when the mainstream media was looking at professional MMA coming into Ontario. And obviously we've got lobby groups on both sides. We have lobby groups that love the sport, and then we have lobby groups that have great concerns about the sport. When the news hit that amateur MMA was coming to Ontario, the lobby groups that were against young people involved in MMA were very vocal. There was a number of print medias, TV media. I was interviewed on a number of stations, and the question was always, is this a safe sport for kids to be involved in? We responded to that as best that we could, but in the end we knew for people that are not from this industry, they look at the UFC and then they look at a 10-year-old child and they say, oh my God, I can't believe we're going to allow this. So for me, probably the highlight of that whole weekend was the fact that the Toronto Star, a lot of the mainstream newspapers were there, the CBC, and they had nothing but positive things to say. And not even the fact that they had positive things to say, was the fact that they interviewed, the 15-year-old girl, Emily Sheree from Sudbury. They interviewed Mickey Marshall, a coach from Nova Scotia. They interviewed Cody from also from out east. And they got to hear from the voice of kids that they enjoyed the experience. They were safe. They felt like the entire sport and competition was done in a way that allowed them to actually try competition, but they knew full well that it would be in a safe environment. They were taken care of. In fact, one of the interviews was of one of the kids' parents on the Fight Network, and he said the same thing. He goes, you know what, I would only allow my kids to compete at an event that was regulated the way this one was. So for me, that was the really positive side of coming out of the Toronto Super Show. To take a step backwards, the amount of work that was required to be done over a course of 2 years to get us to that point made the whole event, that much more positive for me. Because to see a group of volunteers, and we've had dozens of volunteers that have worked with CASC and CSC over a course of 2 years to get amateur MMA where it was, but to actually see, the Jesse Richardsons, the Joey Del Reyeses, the Chris and Blaine Bonifocos there officiating at the very first event, and seeing a year and a half of work finally come to fruition, and to see almost 150 athletes finally get a chance to do the sport that they love. As a person that doesn't practice MMA because it's not my sport, but I'm a huge advocate of Canadians and Ontarians being allowed to do what they want to do. And if this is their passion and there's a way in which we can make this happen within our sporting organization, I'll be the advocate for that. So for me, just to watch these kids and these coaches and these clubs finally get a chance to do something in a safe and regulated manner, that made my weekend.